On Christmas morning, I asked my mom, "Where's my present?" She looked right at me, laughed, and said, "Santa doesn't like ungrateful children." In that second, I felt something inside me break, like the whole holiday I had been waiting for wasn't really for me at all. Stay with me through this story, because what happened that day is the reason everything in my life changed. My name is Ayanna Brooks. I was 16 that Christmas, and for weeks leading up to it, I had been holding on to hope. Christmas was supposed to feel special, you know? The lights, the food, the gifts, it was supposed to make me feel like part of something happy. But in my house, it never worked out that way. I always ended up being the one left out, the one who didn't get the same love or attention as everyone else. That morning, the tree was glowing in the corner of the living room. My little sister Nia was already ripping open her gifts, squealing with excitement as Mom clapped and smiled at her. I sat there waiting, telling myself maybe this year would be different. Maybe I'd finally get something thoughtful, something that showed Mom cared about me too. But when all the wrapping paper was on the floor and Nia was hugging her brand new sneakers, I realized there was nothing left for me. That's when I asked the question. I wasn't trying to be rude. I just wanted to know why I didn't matter enough to get a single gift. And Mom's response cut deeper than anything I could have imagined. She didn't just say no, she mocked me. She made it sound like I was the problem, like I was too ungrateful to deserve kindness. I looked at Nia, and she was laughing too, not even realizing how much it hurt me. The room suddenly felt smaller, like I couldn't breathe. My chest was heavy, my face hot, and I wanted to cry, but I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. I tried to hold it together, but the humiliation was too much. Christmas wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to feel like punishment for simply existing. I ran upstairs and locked myself in my room, listening to the sound of laughter drifting up from downstairs while I sat alone in silence. In that moment, I made myself a promise. I would never forget how it felt to be laughed at on Christmas morning, treated like I didn't deserve even the smallest bit of love. I didn't know how or when, but I swore I'd make sure one day they'd realize the pain they caused me. That morning didn't just ruin Christmas. It lit a fire in me that would never go out. Growing up in the Brooks household always felt like living in two different worlds under one roof. My younger sister Nia lived in the world of light. Everything she did was celebrated, every mistake forgiven, every birthday and Christmas overflowing with presents and love. Then there was me, stuck in the shadows, treated more like an unwanted guest than a daughter. I used to ask myself if maybe I had done something terrible to deserve it, because how else could a mother make one child feel so loved and the other feel so invisible? Nia was only 2 years younger than me, but Mom acted like she was her little princess. If Nia brought home a drawing from school, it went up on the fridge. If I got an A on a hard test, Mom would barely look up from her phone. When Nia wanted new clothes, Mom would take her to the mall and let her pick out whatever she liked. When I asked for shoes because mine had holes in them, Mom would tell me I should be grateful I had anything at all. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It was loud, clear, and constant. At family gatherings, Mom bragged endlessly about Nia's talents, her good looks, her bright future. When it came to me, she'd shake her head and say, "Ayanna's stubborn. She's just like her father." She said it like it was a curse. People would laugh nervously, and I'd sit there pretending it didn't hurt. But it did. Every time. The worst part wasn't even the lack of gifts or praise. It was the way Mom twisted small things to make me feel worthless. Like the time I saved up my allowance. Every dollar I earned babysitting, for months to buy myself a pair of headphones. I wanted them so badly because music was the one escape I had in that house. I kept them hidden in my room, waiting for the right moment to unwrap them like a little present to myself. But Christmas morning came, and there was Nia, unwrapping a box with those exact same headphones inside. My heart dropped into my stomach. Mom had gone into my room, taken what was mine, wrapped it up, and handed it to Nia with a big smile. "Look what Santa brought you, sweetheart," she said, while Nia squealed with joy. I wanted to scream, to say those were mine, that I worked for them, that I mattered too. But Mom caught my eye and gave me that warning look, the one that said, "Don't you dare." And so I stayed quiet, my face burning as my sister hugged her gift, not even realizing what had been stolen from me. That was the day I stopped pretending the difference between us was all in my head. It wasn't. Mom had chosen who she loved, and it wasn't me. From then on, I stopped expecting fairness. But deep inside, the anger started to build, and I knew I could never forget how easily she took what was mine and handed it to someone else as if I didn't exist. When I was little, I used to wonder why my dad wasn't around like other kids' dads. At school, I'd see fathers picking their children up, clapping for them at games, holding their hands as they crossed the street. For me, there was only Mom, and she made sure I believed that was how it had to be. She told us over and over that my father, Maurice Carter, walked out because he didn't care about us. She said he was weak, selfish, and only thought of himself. Every time his name came up, her voice would drip with venom, and she'd look at me like I was his shadow. "You're just like him," she'd snap, and I knew it wasn't meant as a compliment. She poisoned every memory I might have had of him until I almost believed he was some kind of villain. But the thing is, I still remember. I remember how he used to tuck me into bed when I was small, whispering that he loved me. I remember the way his arms felt safe when I climbed into his lap to escape Mom's yelling. I even remember one Christmas before everything fell apart, how he carried me on his shoulders to hang the star on the tree. Those memories never left me, even though Mom tried to bury them under her bitterness. The fights between them were constant. Shouting matches late at night that shook the walls, slammed doors, and broken dishes. One evening, I hid at the top of the stairs, listening. Mom screamed that he was useless, that he'd never amount to anything. He shouted back that she was cruel, that she twisted everything, that one day her own children would see the truth. I didn't understand all of it then, but I understood the pain in his voice. And then one day, he was gone. Mom wasted no time spinning her version of the story. She told Nia and me that he left us, that he chose freedom over family. Nia swallowed her words whole, believing every detail. She never questioned it. But me? I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't the full truth. I remembered how he'd tried to call once or twice, and how Mom would slam the phone down before I could reach it. I remembered letters showing up in the mailbox, only to vanish after Mom checked the mail first. She did everything she could to erase him from our lives. But deep down, I knew he hadn't just walked away. He was pushed out, locked out, and I was robbed of having a father who wanted me. That betrayal cut deeper than the favoritism, deeper than the stolen headphones, because it wasn't just about me. It was about love I could have had but was kept from, about a bond that was broken not by choice, but by force. And the cruelest part? She convinced Nia and the rest of the family to hate him too, leaving me alone with my memories, quietly carrying the truth I wasn't supposed to know. Dinner that Christmas was supposed to be warm and joyful, the kind of night where families gather around the table and laugh over too much food. But in my house, the air was already thick with tension before we even sat down. The smell of baked ham and sweet potatoes filled the room, but it couldn't cover the sting of what had happened earlier that morning. I tried to shake it off, to pretend the humiliation of being mocked in front of Nia didn't matter. But every time I looked at the glowing pile of her gifts in the corner, I felt that lump in my throat all over again. We sat at the table, and everyone seemed in high spirits except me. Nia went on and on about her new sneakers, her headphones, the clothes Mom bought her. Mom beamed like she was showing off her masterpiece. I poked at my food, my appetite gone. But after a while the words just slipped out. Why does Nia always get more than me? I asked softly, almost more to myself than to them. For a second, the table went silent, and I thought maybe Mom would pause and explain, maybe even admit she'd been unfair. But then her face twisted, and I knew I had made a mistake. "You know what your problem is, Ayana?" she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the clinking silverware. "You're ungrateful. Always whining, always comparing, never satisfied. You're selfish. Just like your useless father." Her words hit me like a slap, but what hurt even more was the reaction around the table. Nia giggled into her napkin, and a couple of cousins who had joined us for dinner laughed awkwardly, following Mom's lead. Even my aunt shook her head, muttering, "Kids these days." No one defended me. Not one person. I felt my face burn as the tears threatened to spill, but I didn't want them to see me cry. I tried to hold it in, but when Mom leaned back with that smug look, like she had won something by humiliating me, I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed back my chair, the legs screeching against the floor, and ran upstairs before the sobs could escape. In my room, I slammed the door shut and collapsed onto the bed. The laughter from downstairs carried up through the walls, mocking me even in my hiding place. I buried my face in the pillow, my chest aching with every breath. I had been called names before, ignored, pushed aside, but this felt different. This felt final. That night, staring at the ceiling with my fists clenched, I made a promise to myself. I would never forget how they laughed at me. I would never forgive the way she spit out the word ungrateful, like it defined me. One day, I told myself she would regret it. One day, she would see that the daughter she dismissed was not weak. That night was my breaking point, the moment my pain turned into something sharper. Something I would carry until the time was right. A few weeks after that Christmas, Mom sent me to the attic to bring down some old decorations she wanted to give to a neighbor. The attic was always dusty and cold, filled with boxes stacked high like a maze of forgotten memories. I didn't expect to find anything important, but as I pushed aside a pile of old blankets, my foot hit a small wooden chest shoved into the corner. It looked different from the other boxes, cleaner, like someone had hidden it there on purpose. Curiosity pulled me closer. The chest was locked with a flimsy latch that popped open easily. Inside, I found a stack of envelopes tied together with string. My hands trembled as I picked them up, brushing away the dust. The handwriting on the front of the first letter made my heart stop. It was my father's. I sat down right there on the attic floor and started tearing them open. Birthday cards. Christmas cards. Notes filled with words I had never seen but had always longed to hear. Happy birthday, Ayana. I miss you more than words can say. Merry Christmas, baby girl. I hope you know I love you always. Some even had little trinkets tucked inside. Stickers, bracelets, small stuffed animals. Others held money orders, still crisp and unused, as if they had never been cashed. Tears blurred my vision as I read card after card. It wasn't just one or two. There were dozens of them, spanning years. Every birthday I thought he had forgotten. Every Christmas I believed he had abandoned me. He had tried to reach me. He hadn't walked away from me. He had been shut out. And the person who made sure I never saw those letters was the one person who was supposed to protect me. My own mother. I pressed the stack of envelopes against my chest, sobbing so hard my whole body shook. It felt like I was mourning an entire childhood stolen from me. All those years I had spent thinking I wasn't enough for my father to care, when really he had been fighting to stay connected. Mom had poisoned me against him, and she had done it deliberately. She hadn't just neglected me, she had sabotaged me. The heartbreak was unbearable, but underneath it, something else began to grow. Rage. A deep, burning rage that made my hands clench into fists. She didn't just take away presents or play favorites with Nia. She had taken away love. She had stolen my father from me, stolen the chance for me to feel wanted, to feel like someone had my back. I wiped my tears, stuffing the letters back into the box, but I wasn't the same girl who had walked into the attic. I had proof now. Proof of her lies, her cruelty, her betrayal. My whole life, she had told me my father didn't care. Now I knew the truth. He cared. She was the one who didn't. And I swore to myself that one day, she would answer for it. After finding the letters, I couldn't stop thinking about my father. I carried them with me like fragile treasures, rereading them every night until I had memorized the words. They felt like proof that I hadn't imagined his love, that I wasn't as unwanted as Mom always made me believe. But proof wasn't enough. I needed to know if he was still out there. I needed to hear his voice again. One of the envelopes had a return address, though it was years old. I stared at it for days, afraid of what might happen if I reached out. What if he rejected me now? What if he had moved on and forgotten me? But the thought of staying silent felt worse than the fear. One evening, when Mom and Nia were out shopping, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. My hands shook as I explained who I was, how I had found the box, how I hoped, prayed, that he still cared. I slipped it into the mailbox before I could change my mind. Weeks passed, and every day I rushed home to check the mail, my heart pounding with hope and dread. Then one afternoon, there it was, an envelope with my name written in the same familiar handwriting I had seen on those old cards. I ran upstairs, shut the door, and tore it open. Inside was a letter that changed everything. He wrote that he never stopped loving me, that he tried for years to stay in my life, but every door he knocked on was slammed in his face. He told me how he sent money, gifts, cards, all of which disappeared into Mom's hands. He said he thought about me every day, that not a birthday or Christmas went by without him wishing he could hold me. Reading those words, I cried harder than I ever had before, but this time the tears weren't just of pain. They were of relief, of finally knowing the truth. We began writing back and forth in secret. Each letter from him was like a lifeline, pulling me out of the darkness I had been drowning in for years. Eventually, we arranged to meet at a small cafe far from our neighborhood. I remember walking in and seeing him waiting at the corner table. His hair was grayer, his face a little older, but his eyes lit up the second they met mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. He listened as I told him about everything: Mom's cruelty, her favoritism, the way she twisted me into believing I was unwanted. He shook his head, his eyes full of anger and regret. "She stole you from me," he whispered, his voice breaking. And in that moment, I finally felt safe. Meeting him in secret became my escape. With him, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't ungrateful. I was just Ayana, his daughter, loved and wanted. And with every secret visit, my strength grew, and so did my determination to one day expose the lies that had stolen so many years from me. At home, nothing seemed different on the surface. I still sat at the dinner table, still nodded when Mom barked orders, still pretended to laugh at Nia's endless bragging. But inside, I was no longer the same. Meeting my father had lit something inside me, a quiet strength that Mom couldn't touch. And with that strength came a plan. I realized early on that if I wanted freedom, it wasn't enough to just leave. Mom had built her whole life on making me the problem, painting me as ungrateful, selfish, even broken. If I walked away without proof, she'd spin the story her way, and everyone would believe her. No, I needed to expose her, to make sure everyone saw her for who she really was. So I started keeping track. I wrote everything down in a notebook I hid under my mattress. Every cruel word, every time she called me useless, or compared me to Dad with disgust, every little act of favoritism. When she bought Nia new clothes with the money I had saved from babysitting, I wrote it down. When she bragged about how much she sacrificed for us while secretly using my allowance to fund Nia's hobbies, I recorded the dates, the amounts, the receipts I managed to grab from the trash. It felt dangerous, like walking a thin line where one slip would give me away. But at the same time, it gave me power. For once, I wasn't just taking her cruelty, I was turning it into evidence. My father supported me every step of the way. He told me to be patient, to think carefully, not to let anger rush me into mistakes. "The truth has a way of shining through if you give it the right light," he said. His words became my anchor. He reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the way she treated me. Every time I felt like giving up, I remembered that he believed in me, and that gave me enough courage to keep going. At school, I started keeping copies of my notes in my locker, just in case Mom ever found the notebook at home. I even used my phone to record moments when she exploded, catching her voice on audio as she screamed about how I'd never be good enough. Each little piece added to the puzzle, building a picture of the woman who pretended to be a perfect mother. And all the while, I smiled when she looked at me, pretending to be the quiet, defeated girl she thought I was. I laughed when she demanded it, kept my head down when she mocked me, acted like her words still cut me the way they used to. She never suspected that every cruel moment was becoming part of the case against her. It wasn't just about leaving anymore. It was about making sure that when I finally walked away, I wouldn't be the one carrying shame. She would. She had spent years trying to erase me, but I was the one writing the ending now, and I promised myself it would be one she could never escape. The living room was warm with Christmas lights, laughter, and the clinking of glasses as relatives gathered around the long dining table. Denise was in her element, smiling brightly, soaking up the admiration of cousins and aunts who praised her for raising two beautiful daughters all on her own. She waved her hand with a modest chuckle, pretending to brush off the compliments while making sure everyone heard every word. Nia, as always, sat at the center of attention, unwrapping expensive gifts Denise had showered her with. "A Gucci bag?" one cousin gasped. "You really know how to treat your girls, Denise." The room buzzed with envy and admiration, and Denise straightened her shoulders, glowing. Ayana sat quietly at the far end of the table, her plate untouched. Her hands trembled under the tablecloth, not from fear, but from the weight of the box resting at her feet. She had waited for this moment, planned it down to the smallest detail. Tonight wasn't about presents or food. Tonight was about truth. Denise raised her glass. "I just thank God I've been both mother and father to my girls. Their father walked away, but I stayed strong. I gave up everything to raise them with dignity." That was the spark. Ayana stood slowly, her chair scraping the floor, drawing eyes toward her. Her voice was steady. "Is that what you told them, Mom? That Dad walked away?" The room fell quiet, puzzled faces turning between mother and daughter. Denise stiffened, her smile faltering. "Ayana, sit down. Don't start your nonsense tonight." Instead, Ayana bent down and lifted the box onto the table. It was worn, the edges frayed, but the weight of it silenced the room even more than her words. She opened the lid, and one by one, she began to lay out letters. Stacks of them. Envelopes yellowed with age, some still sealed, others creased from years of waiting. Alongside them came small wrapped trinkets, faded birthday cards, and unopened Christmas gifts. "What is this?" an aunt whispered. Ayana picked up the first card, her voice trembling only slightly as she read. "Happy 10th birthday, Ayana. Daddy loves you more than words can say. I'll never stop trying to see you." Gasps rippled through the room. Ayana continued, her eyes scanning the words, her voice stronger with every line. "Merry Christmas, Ayana. I hope you got the necklace I sent. Your mom hasn't let me visit, but I'll never give up on you." She laid the card flat on the table and looked directly at her mother. "He never left me. You made sure I never saw him. You made me believe I wasn't wanted." All eyes turned on Denise. She sputtered, her practiced composure slipping into panic. That's not true. He abandoned us." But the evidence was undeniable. The silence of the family turned heavy, judgmental. Cousins shook their heads, aunts whispered furiously. One uncle muttered, "All these years, Denise? You lied to us too." Denise's face drained of color as her carefully built image crumbled before her. For the first time, Ayana saw fear in her mother's eyes, and she didn't look away. This was the justice she had been waiting for. The silence after Ayana laid down the last card was suffocating. Denise's painted smile cracked under the weight of 100 unspoken questions. She reached for her wine glass, her hand trembling. This is ridiculous. He was never there for you, Ayana. Those letters mean nothing. Anyone can write empty promises." But the room didn't buy it. Her relatives leaned forward, their faces hard with disbelief. Ayana's grandmother, Ruth, rose slowly from her chair. She was a woman whose words carried weight in the family, and her voice shook with fury. "Denise," she said sharply, "are you telling me you kept my son's letters from his own child? You stood here for years, letting us believe he abandoned her, when all along you were the one blocking him." Denise's face paled. "Mama, please, it's not that simple." "Oh, it's very simple," Ruth snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "You destroyed his relationship with his daughter. You poisoned her against her father. And you let this child grow up thinking she was unloved. How dare you?" The tension burst into murmurs from cousins and aunts. Some shook their heads, others whispered angrily, glancing at Ayana with pity. "I always wondered why she seemed so withdrawn," one cousin muttered. "No wonder." Denise turned toward them, desperate. "You don't understand what it was like raising them alone. I did what I thought was best. He was unstable, unreliable." "Liar," Ruth cut her off, her eyes blazing. "My son wasn't perfect, but he loved his daughter. Those cards prove it. And you robbed Ayana of him." The words landed like a hammer, shattering what little defense Denise had left. Meanwhile, Nia sat frozen in her chair, her shiny new handbag on her lap forgotten. Her eyes darted between the letters on the table and her mother's face. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "All these years, you told me Dad didn't want us. You said he walked away. But he wanted Ayana. He wanted both of us, didn't he?" Denise reached out, her voice breaking. "Nia, baby, Nia jerked back, shaking her head. "You lied to me too. You made me hate him. You made me look at Ayana like she was the problem when it was you the whole time." Tears welled in her eyes as she pushed her chair back and stood, leaving Denise's hand suspended in midair. For the first time in her life, Ayana saw her sister's loyalty falter, and Denise's mask slip entirely. The confident, commanding mother who had always dictated every detail of their lives now looked small, desperate, and cornered. The relatives weren't silent anymore. Voices rose around the table, accusing, condemning. "Shameful. Cruel. How could you do that to your own child?" Denise tried to shout over them, but her voice cracked under the wave of judgment. No one was listening anymore. Her power was gone, shredded by the truth Ayana had unleashed. And as Denise sat there, floundering, Ayana felt something she had never known before. The cold, steady satisfaction of seeing her mother powerless. Ayana packed her bags in silence, each folded shirt feeling like another piece of herself finally being gathered back together. For years, her mother's house had felt like a prison, walls heavy with judgment, rooms echoing with favoritism and lies. Now, for the first time, she was leaving it behind. Maurice, her father, stood outside with his car, waiting with open arms and eyes that carried both guilt and love. When she walked out the door with her suitcase, he hugged her tightly, whispering, "I should have fought harder, baby. But I promise you, I'll never let go again." Moving in with him was like stepping into sunlight after years of darkness. His home wasn't big or fancy, but it was filled with warmth. Every small gesture, a plate of food saved for her, a note on the fridge, a question about her day, was proof that she wasn't invisible. For once, she didn't feel like a shadow in her own life. Meanwhile, Denise's world crumbled. The relatives who once praised her stopped answering her calls. Friends avoided her, whispers following her everywhere about the mother who lied to her own children. Christmas photos that year didn't include her, because no one wanted to celebrate with someone who had destroyed her daughter's childhood for pride. Nia, shaken and confused, reached out weeks later. She came to Ayana with swollen eyes, clutching one of the old letters she had secretly kept from the pile. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought she was protecting us. I thought you were just angry all the time. But she made me believe it. I see it now." Ayana listened, her heart torn. She could see the guilt weighing heavy on her younger sister. But the scars were too deep to vanish overnight. "We were both her pawns," Ayana finally said. "But now you get to choose who you want to be. Don't let her lies define you the way they almost defined me." Their relationship didn't heal instantly, but for the first time, Nia wasn't her enemy. She was just another victim learning how to untangle herself from Denise's grip. As for Denise, she was left alone in that big, silent house. No husband, no family, no golden image to parade in front of others. Just her bitterness and the echoes of all the lies she told. Every corner reminded her of what she had lost, not because of bad luck, but because of her own cruelty. Ayana, looking back, felt no regret. She remembered that Christmas morning when her mother laughed in her face and sneered, "Santa doesn't like ungrateful children." At the time, it had broken her. But now, with her father by her side and her future in her own hands, she realized that was the day her mother unknowingly lit the fire that would one day burn her lies to ash. Justice had come, not in anger, but in truth. And with truth came Ayana's freedom. Do you think Ayana made the right choice by walking away from her mother and starting fresh with her dad? Or should she have tried to fix things at home? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. And if stories like this keep you hooked, don't forget to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.